Okay, excuse me.
No, you're fine.
Okay, excuse me.
We are all set.
Should we do that again? Or are we all set?
I think we're okay.
No one has any objection to continuing. Continue with school committee member introductions. And I'll start. I'm Bruce Damon. I'm the chair from Ward 1.
Karen Paquette, Assistant Superintendent.
Megan Parks at large.
Janet Bowden, Ward 2.
Elizabeth Ames, Ward 3.
Jake Langless, Superintendent.
Tanya Whitlow, Ward 4.
Ashley Medina, Ward 5.
Megan Hurd, Ward 6.
Paul Beaubelant, Ward 7.
And Linda Scott, City Council Representative.
Thank you all. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items which any member would like to set aside for further discussion?
Seeing none, Bruce.
Being none, the consent agenda is adopted. The next item on the agenda would be public input. Members of the public may address the school committee for up to 3 minutes on agenda items now, on non-agenda items now, and on agenda items later. Comments that pertain to staff, personal matters, or student issue should be directed to the superintendent or the appropriate staff member of Lewiston Public Schools. Public comment shall be directed to the school committee, be brief, non-repetitive, and related to the matter at hand. Before starting, please state your name, address, and affiliation to Lewiston Public Schools. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the school committee?
Seeing none.
Seeing none, we'll close the public input at this time. The fifth item on the agenda is to recognize Lewiston Public School staff. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask to the podium if Vicki Wigman could please go up to the podium for a short recognition, if you wouldn't mind, because I want as many people as possible to recognize that Vicki it's become public that she has decided to retire. And I think we would be remiss, and we'll have several of these over the next month, to not say a few things about what Vicki means to this community, to the thousands of lives that she has touched over her many years. Just a couple of quick notes. Selfishly, I'm going to share that in a number of transitions I've made to the middle school, where Vicki also works, to the high school, where I think Vicki is one of the cornerstones of the institution and what it means for kids. She's always been a sound voice, someone who sees things that I wouldn't see, who would take the time to share that in the most professional of ways, even if it challenged my thinking. Believes in wellness for everyone, adults and kids alike, community. She's a leader. She is a foundation of all good things. Student-centered, cutting edge of trends. If you need to know what the kids are up to these days, that they shouldn't be up to, Vicki knows, and she can explain it to you, and she has data, and she's done her own research, and she's really focused on making sure that people have what they need to be well. She's a teacher. She'll always be a teacher. She's a trainer. She's someone who can truly reminisce and think back on her career and what she's done and be proud of the impact she's had on our entire community. And I'm also proud to say that she has had the same kind of impact in her hometown, which is just up the road. Everywhere Vicki goes, she has a positive impact on the wellness and the well-being of everyone involved. From a public health perspective, I'll never forget during the pandemic, I was like, oh my word, how are kids going to graduate? And Vicki said, kids are losing their minds. And she started making videos so we could post them and share them just to help kids try to figure out which way was up. And we heard back from adults who were watching these videos feeling like that was helpful to them. She's never about herself, and can't thank you enough for all of your contributions. If I had to list them, it would be unbelievable. Vicky is and will remain a leader in our state. I believe that even when she retires, people will continue to reach out to her. If I see her name pop up in my inbox, I will read it and I will digest it and I will think it through. Really can't thank you enough for just being a great person who cares about other people and have just dumped all of your energy into the wellness of others. And you've made a real impact. If anybody in the room could have half the impact you've had, I think we would call that a success. So truly, thank you. And I know there's not a ton of people here tonight, but there are some, and I'd like to give Vicky a chance to speak, but then I'd also recommend that we do a standing ovation for Vicky because she just salt of the earth. Can't thank you enough for everything you've given.
That one. Technology is not my thing. I don't really know what to say. I have been here 35 years. And after vowing to Megan that, no, I'm not really sad about leaving. I mean, I'll miss some people, but it is a pretty big deal the closer it gets. I don't have a whole lot of days left of my career. I will always treasure moments like I had earlier when a parent came up to me, came to my office and just said, I wanted to thank you for everything you've been to me and my son. And I said to her, when I started working here, I didn't have any children, so I didn't say this. And now I have 3 and they're all adults and I'm really old, but not really old. But I had said to her, when I come to work every day, I try to be the person that I would want my kids to have if they needed to talk to someone. And that's how I've guided my work. This has been a great place to work. We can be proud of all that we've done in Lewiston. When I was hired, I was one of many in many communities, and almost none of those communities have this position anymore. So we can be really proud of that. And if we are really proud of that, keep it going. I'm anxious to see who takes this position, and I'm careful not to say my position, this position, and makes it what they can make it, and that we never lose sight of those faces that are before us, be they, teens or littles or their parents or grandparents. So I appreciate your words. It's been a great run for me. I'm proud of it. Proud of this district, and I'll keep you all in my best thoughts. I'm going to sit down now.
No, he's going to give you something.
Thank you again, Vicky, for everything. Next up, I'm going to invite Director Rob Callahan to the podium, who is going to introduce, I believe, an advisor and a teacher who's been instrumental in the success. I don't know if you've seen some things shared, but we'll continue to share them. Great success that we've had with our students competing at the SkillsUSA competition. And Director Callahan, I'll pass the mic to you and share some more information.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased and proud to be here tonight to introduce our SkillsUSA advisor, Mr. Paul Kennedy, and some of his students. For those of you who don't know, SkillsUSA is the largest career and technical student organization in the world. It's an international, and it incorporates encompasses several 100,000 students and teachers worldwide that focus on career and technical education. It is extremely robust, and the experience is really intended to help introduce and prepare students for the world of work in all of its technical and professional skills that are needed to be successful. So each year, LRTC does a local competition, hosts a series of local competitions throughout our building. Every student participates, and it could be something like public speaking, or it might be something like cabinet making, or first aid CPR, or welding and metal fabrication. Students participate in the building, and then we have local contest winners. Those contest winners proceed to the state, where they compete against roughly 650 other career and technical education students that have won in their centers and regions, and they compete in Bangor, and this happened in March. I'm very pleased to ask Mr. Kennedy to come up and recognize some of the students that have emerged from that state competition as being the most exceptional students in their field in this year's competitions. And they are headed, with your good grace and some fundraising, to Atlanta, Georgia, to participate in the SkillsUSA National Skills Competition. So, Mr. Kennedy, please.
Good evening. Good evening. Locally, we held competitions. We had almost 500 registrants for local competitions, which meant several students competed in a number of different competitions. Out of that mix, some were local only competitions, some went to the state level, and then some were contests that went to the national level as well. We took 60 students to the state competition, and we have 6 students that will compete at the national competition down in Atlanta from June 20th to the 25th. And I'd like those students to, if it's all right, to bring them up here. Come on up, guys. And I'd like them to introduce themselves, if they would. At LRTC, we come from 6 different schools, and we all work together. So what I'd like the students to do is introduce yourself, tell the sending school that you're from, the competition that you're going to be competing in, and maybe just a very small piece about it. If you'd start.
Hello. Oh, wait. Yeah. My name's Connor Rawson. I'm from Poland Regional High School, and I'm in job demo O. So what I've chosen to do as my outside activity is like blacksmithing and weapon forging, that kind of stuff.
Hello, I am Joshua Goslin. I'm a senior at Oak Hill High School. I participated in LRTC for multimedia in the past 2 years in the multimedia technology, and I'm actually in the t-shirt design program or competition at SkillsUSA. This is the t-shirt that I had, and I won gold in that. I had to design for 8 weeks a t-shirt design and actually have to be interviewed and display it and tell all the judges why my shirt properly encompasses what Maine is.
Can you pass that t-shirt around so we can see it? Would that be okay? And can you tell us a little bit about it?
I will say this is a really nice looking t-shirt, and we will just happen to be selling some as fundraisers for the national competition. Mr. Callahan will take orders if we want as the meeting goes on.
Hi, my name is Marguerite Shepard. I'm a junior at Lewiston High School, and I also am in the multimedia program. I won gold at States for advertising design. I had 4 hours to create an advertisement from scratch, as well as a logo, which is a very hard thing to do. And I'll be representing the state of Maine at nationals for that competition. I also am the state officer, one of the state officers for SkillsUSA. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dominic Massey. I'm a senior at Everett Little High School. For SkillsUSA, I will be competing at Action Skills. I'll be demonstrating how to solder pipes, like for plumbing wise. So if judges have a certain question about plumbing or anything, I'll be showing them how to do it.
Good evening. I'm Abigail Lucas. I'm from Lisbon High School, and I'm going to be competing in the state pin design. We just have to create a 1.5-inch pin design, and then we competed at states, and then I take it to nationals.
I believe there's only one pin that goes from each state. Is that correct, Director Callahan? So for you to win that is quite impressive.
Right.
And-
So at the national competition, that's actively traded. So each of the students will get our good pin from the tech center, which will be traded throughout the United States, and it will go all over. And it's a beautiful design. And each competition, I just should add, represents extracurricular work. So this is akin to the work they do in the curriculum, but it requires school after school work. It requires them to do preparation and things that are outside of our curriculum. And for that, I'd be very remiss if I didn't mention our good advisor. So this requires all kinds of extra time on his part to come in on weekends, and we work through different skills scenarios, setting up competitions and doing things for 60 participants at the state level. But as Mr. Kennedy mentioned, for 500 plus students locally who are interested in a particular thing. And really, it's about the experience. You know, the winning is fantastic, and we're all super proud of the students. But the idea that they've done something of their choosing that allows them to experience a professional challenge like they probably haven't experienced before, we feel is unique in the world of education. And it really helps them think about whether or not this might be a career path that they would intend to pursue. And I think it also shows them that they really have some capabilities. There are very few students in the state of Maine tonight that can do what these folks have done. And we're really proud of them for that. So.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, and good luck at the national level. Director Callahan, while you're here, was it, Rob, was it 32 medals that were won this year?
We won 32 medals overall.
32 medals overall at the state level. Yeah. Congratulations, great job. Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. That's it for recognitions tonight. Again, we'll have more at our next meeting.
Thank you, Jake. And congratulations to Ms. Wigman and to all of the LRTC staff. It's a really good program, and it's meaningful to all industries in our workforce development. The next item on the agenda is to receive and potentially vote on a field trip request to Fenway Park for the STEM education plan.
So coming up, I think we have Dr. Callahan again, and also Kate Chase, aspirations coordinator at the high school.
Thank you again. I am joined by my good colleague tonight from Lewiston High School, our aspirations coordinator, Kate Chase. And we're here to seek permission for a field trip for a STEM day that is held annually at Fenway Park at the Boston Red Sox. So it's, it's kind of nice that way. And LRTC and Lewiston High School are bringing down cohorts of students to this very same experience. And really the purpose is that the Red Sox put on, prior to a game happening, a series of presentations, career opportunities to meet with STEM professionals. So we will bring students down, we'll get them up and get them going early in the morning, feed them breakfast, chaperone them on a bus, get them down to Fenway Park where they can experience these STEM presentations and career opportunities. And then they get to enjoy a great baseball game, and we'll get them back with a bite of dinner, and we should be back about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, we think. So there are what you have are two separate, we're each taking a cohort, but it's essentially, it's exactly the same experience. And Kate, I don't know if you'd add anything to that, or?
No, I'm taking 40, you're taking 53, right?
Yep.
And I have 6 chaperones going, and breakfast, lunch, and dinner will all be provided
And
at no cost. Yeah.
Yep. No cost to students.
We have a motion.
Ms. Scott has her hand up.
I'd like to move that we accept and approve the field trip to Fenway and wish we could go with you.
I'll second it.
It's heard.
So, Mr. Chair, you have a motion by Member Scott and a second by Ms. Medina.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from the committee?
Yes. I just,
Ms. Whitlow?
yeah, I just had a quick question. I'm totally for this. I just, on the field trip request, there's a section that says permission slips obtained, and it's no is checked off. And I don't know if I've noticed this before, but we do have a permission slip attached that parents will have to sign. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I would suspect that was probably checked in error.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
Other questions or comments from the committee?
Bruce, I have a question.
I can't see you, so go ahead, please.
I'm assuming this is taking place in the same, like you guys aren't leaving, it's all happening at the park. Are you going? So there's no like potential like walking outside, like tea rides, like none of that. Like it's just all the same building.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Others?
And I guess I would add, again, this is an experience that Lewiston High School has been.
Many times.
Yep. So it's a really great day. It's very favorably reviewed by staff and students.
If you happen to be watching the game, they usually sit kind of that back right field, right center grandstand underneath the Dunkin' Donuts sign.
We'll put them in LRTC t-shirts so you can see them, right?
The question. I've been at Fenway for a game when this happened and I always thought it was the most amazing thing. If it's at all possible, if we could get like a little presentation at some point when you guys get back, that would be wonderful, just because so we can live vicariously through you and the students.
Anyone else?
It doesn't look like it.
Okay, seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote, and I'll start with myself as Ward 1, yes. Ward 2,
Yes.
I'm sorry, at large.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
City Council.
Yes.
That would be unanimous, 9-0. Well, congratulations and enjoy yourself, but bring us back some good news. The next item on the agenda is to receive and potentially vote on a field trip request to Orono for the All-State Music Festival. And I believe that's Aaron Morrison.
Jody, following the baseball theme, are you pinch hitting for Aaron this evening?
The face. There we go. Good evening. Yes, I'm pinch hitting. I suppose you can say that. Relief pitching or something. I'm not sure. Backup quarterback if you want to switch sports or yeah, I could beat that one to death. But good evening. I'm Jody Doobie. I'm here because Erin couldn't make it. She's busy with SpongeBob the musical kids, and they're working, very hard on getting that ready. Jenna also has things to do tonight. So as the visual performing arts content leader, I get the honor of coming in and speaking with you. And in case some of you are worried, this is not a 10-page speech. So I just a few notes for myself. Every year, annually, we send students, gifted students to the Maine Music Educators Association All-State Festival. And it's to be held from May 19th to the 21st at University of Maine, Orono. This festival is a prestigious annual event in which students from all over the state audition with high caliber musicianship in order to participate in a big culminating musical concert. Only the top percentage of students in each field, orchestra, choral, and band, audition for the festival and are invited to participate. This year, we have 3 students participating. The students will be chaperoned by Ms. Nelson and Ms. Morrison, and students will be transported to the field trip via LRTC van. And I suppose I should mention the 3 honorable kids that are being chosen to go. Keenan Bowden in the category of choir, Wayne Shaw for orchestra, and Scott Almquist for concert band. So in presenting this, it's my hope that you'll approve of this, what I think is a very a wonderful opportunity for these kids to bring honor to our community and to themselves.
I'll move that we approve this field trip.
A second.
Motion by Ms. Whitlow and a second by
Ms. Bowden?
Ms. Bowden. Questions or discussion from the committee?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that this one also says permission slips obtained. And it's marked no. So I don't know if I'm reading it wrong or if.
Well,
we're
it's a
just spelling
good
it out
question.
wrong.
And I asked Ms. Morrison about that today, or Ms. Nelson, excuse me, interchangeable heads and limbs. And I don't think they wanted to put the horse before the car or the cart before the horse. In this case, they wanted to get the permission first, and the permission slips are ready to roll, and that's not a problem. Yeah. So that's definitely a consideration that's in place.
I was gonna point that out. There's 3 boxes. One is before the yes, one is before the no, and one is before the will be. And if you go back to the other field trip also, it's the box before the will be, not the box.
Thank you
before
for
the no.
correcting me.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Doobie?
Seeing none?
Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Ward 1, yes. At large,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
and City Council.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you, Jody. The next item on the agenda is to receive and potentially vote for the list of teacher contract renewals for 22-23 school year.
So we do this
Quite an
annually.
extensive list. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We do this annually around this time of year, and so these are renewals, probationary folks, and the list is before you in the packet.
So we're just approving the probationary contract, but nothing. Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and motion to approve this.
Second.
Comments or questions for the superintendent? Jake, I was surprised that we had quite so many 1 to 2 year, the significant number of new teachers, which is exciting, I guess, the fact that they're all coming back.
We are very excited to have such a good list of people coming back for sure.
There are no other comments. I'll call the roll. Ward 1 is yes. At large,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
City Council.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. The next item on the agenda is to review and potentially vote on a mileage reimbursement.
I shared a very brief memo with you in your packet. This came up a few weeks back. Someone was asking about the reimbursement rate for miles. And we have a policy in place and there's language around procedurally, I should say, how many cents per mile. And someone asked, why don't we use the federal rate? And so I actually reached out to Heather at the city to find out how they establish their rate. And she said, well, we use the federal rate. And so I just thought appropriate to put it before the committee to use the same methodology of recognizing that the federal government does set by way of the IRS a reimbursable rate. It takes effect in January of every year. I don't believe they do that at other intervals, but if they did, we would adapt to whatever the IRS has established as the federal rate and reimburse people for their mileage at that rate if you approve.
Can you say what the difference in the two rates are?
It was it's currently at 38 cents. And right now the federal rate is 58 cents currently. So it's 20 cents per mile difference, which is substantial.
Jake, is this a significant line item budget every year or is it pretty small?
It's relatively small, but something that we can keep an eye on and limit travel if we need to.
I just want to, I don't recall the contracts that I've helped negotiate, but nothing is a negotiated contract item.
It's a good question. So this isn't a negotiated item. Ironically, it lands in our travel reimbursement procedure or form. So you can put in your miles and it does the math for you at the bottom of the sheet. So we do within contracts make mention of reimbursing travel and things like that, but there's no rates set to it. We do have some contracts where some folks get a certain amount of money for travel. That's contractually negotiated, but it's separate of this figure.
Yeah, I mean, I would, oh, sorry, Bruce, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just having this conversation at my job today too. So everybody's raising their travel rates because of gas prices right now, and 38 cents just doesn't even make sense right now. So I would go ahead and motion to approve this.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Ms. Whitlow and seconded by
Member Eames.
discussion.
Member Bowden and Member Scott have their hands up.
Okay, Janet.
Thank you. He asked about it on a budget line. I'm just curious. I have a couple questions. Is it going to affect our budget for next year? Is it going to change anything?
No, those items that we've already put in are established at that amount that you've approved.
Okay. And is this something that is, I don't know the term, I guess a mandate? Is this something we need to do? Or is this just a goodwill thing that we're doing?
I wouldn't call it a mandate, but I do think that if we don't reimburse people at a more appropriate rate, we'd be asking them to spend their own money to do things like professional development and things like that. I think our staff work really hard and committed to it, as you know. So I think it's a reasonable adjustment. I don't know if I would call it goodwill. No one's come knocking on the door to ask for this. It was just a discrepancy that when we looked up and realized that there's a standard out there in the world and we are not at it. We could set our own rates annually. We could set our own rates today and do something totally different. That's that rate. But what we do from a budget perspective, we will sit as a team and look at what's available and what we can afford. And as we know, some of those PD lines got pretty thin in our budget process. So this would just be compensating people for that do travel at that rate, if approved.
Thank you.
Scott,
Thank you. So I think it's actually a great thing that we're aligning with the city and keeping it consistent amongst both departments. I would just ask, though, that if we could just have maybe in the future an update on actually how much is used, so we can actually see what that amount is, so that we can just have an understanding of how much it would be.
Yeah, we can try to pull that up. Member Parks?
Do you know when it was last changed and where the 38 cents came from?
So I think it's not been changed since 2014, 15-ish. And I don't know, but my guess is that was probably the rate, the federal rate.
The federal rate then.
At that point.
Okay.
I don't know that for sure, but my guess is that's probably where it was. And that.
I know a few years ago, I was getting reimbursed at one of my jobs at 46 cents or 48 cents. So it sounds like this hasn't been updated in quite a while. Thank you.
So if we adopt this, so every year, who's gonna check to see the federal rate and we'll always, and if we adopt this, we'll always follow the federal rate. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be my line of thinking. If approved by the committee, we would follow the federal rate when it gets adjusted, and the change, they announce it, I think, in November, December, and the change takes effect January 1st. So we'd put this on our business office to track and modify that form.
anyone else?
Seeing no other hands or anyone looking to go to the podium, Bruce?
I'll call the roll. Ward 1 is yes. At large.
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
City Council.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. The next item on the agenda is to review and potentially vote on videotaping of our meetings. And Jake has some information on that.
Well, we've had the luxury of Director Terrio taking care of us, making sure we have working microphones, a setup that runs, live streaming, sound both ways, all of those pieces. Dave is retiring, and we're going to recognize him here at some point soon, but he doesn't know that yet. I wasn't going to say anything out loud because he hates that stuff, but we have, I think we're at a point in time where a decision needs to be made, because we continue to use this space, which requires our facility staff to move the tables out, create the whatever this is. Dave comes in advance. He's got some staff that are kind of coached up on how to put it together. But all this stuff has to come out, be set up for our meetings, and then go back. And as you know, we've had some late nights, and that person that we always call back into the room after executive sessions or hearings is Dave. And he comes back in and he takes care of everything. And he's done so without any complaint. But Dave also gets up the next morning and goes to work, usually by 7:30. And so it's an ask. The alternative that we had thought about, at least I thought was a good idea until we did more research, was to use the multi-purpose room at the high school and have all of this equipment like wired in. And so we might have to take out mics, but other than that, things would be there and we would turn it on and off. Maybe Karen would run it with a computer or a tablet. And it would be similar to what we had before at Dingley, but with the ability to live stream. Quote came in for that at about $125,000. And Dave, I may misspeak, you want to correct me. The guy said, if you wanted to, he was up front. He said, if you want to move forward with this right now, some of these prices might fluctuate and you may not be able to get some of this equipment for at least 6 to 8 months. So I felt like that was an extraordinary amount of money to spend, given the times. Made me real uncomfortable to think that we would drop that kind of coin into a system that didn't have a much bigger purpose than what we're doing for our meetings. And so it prompted another conversation of, should it go in a different space so that it could be used by multiple people, more of like a community venue? We thought about the Green Ladle. We thought about the seminar room at the high school, which is not big enough. But we're trying to find that delicate balance of, maybe it doesn't have to be a person to set up and take down quite as much as we do every single meeting. Maybe it could be something that's still live streamed. The system we had used in the past at Dingley only records, and then you have to let it render, which is a multi-hour process. It was always Dave the next morning making sure it was running, Dave making sure that it was downloaded and then posted to the website, in and amongst the other things, which could be done again. And also trying to find a location that is big enough, comfortable enough, not disruptive, but is also available. And so I just thought we're at a point where we really need to have a discussion about what is it that this committee would like to do, or direct us for steps. So a couple of short-term pieces. Dave does have some folks that could sit in for a while. I just don't think that's a long-term solution, especially not here. If we bounce school to school like we have in the past, which I think would be kind of nice, all this equipment, if we make that decision, would either go with us or we would not be taping. We would have to make some decisions. Prior to having systems, we paid an organization to come in and videotape and download. So we paid someone else to do it. So we paid externally, we got some equipment. It's not sufficient anymore, but maybe if we choose to go that way, then we got different equipment, and we've been using a lot of Dave's time. Again, he's been very gracious, but I think we're at a point we have to decide, are we recording? Are we recording and live streaming? Are we doing one or the other? Are we doing neither? Is it going to be mixed? Like, if we're meeting in a central spot, we're going to set that up more efficiently cost-wise, and we'll record those meetings, but not others, or hire it out. Just looking for direction. I don't think we have to make a decision tonight unless the committee wants to. But I think people have come familiar with watching the live streams, and they want to. I also know that some of those very same people are pretty fiscally conservative and wouldn't want it to cost money. I can tell you unequivocally, it costs money, quite a lot. And if we upgrade or upkeep the equipment, which COVID funds have been used to buy this stuff, but if we make this any kind of permanent fixture, it's a significant commitment. So I guess I just want to open up the floor to, what are your thoughts and ideas? Maybe short, midterm, and long-term, if that all makes sense. Because even if we wanted to get the big system tomorrow, it's not gonna be ready for a year. So I don't know who had their hands up first. Bruce, I don't know if you could see it, but I see Member Bowden, Member Parks, both have hands up.
If you saw Janet first, let's have her start. And
Thank you. This whole mic system, how complicated is this? Is this something that, like, we could just plug it in, or is this like extremely complicated?
Actually, I would say that the mic piece is less complicated. It's really about making all the systems dance together and live streaming. That's where it becomes more complicated.
So I'm just wondering, like, if we were to travel from school to school, and, have our meetings in different cafeterias, could we just set up a tripod with an iPad and go on YouTube and live stream that way? I mean, I just don't know how fancy we need to be. I just don't know also if the audio will catch. Can we connect mics to that? I just brainstorming. I don't know.
I think those are great ideas. We've talked about how could we simplify, and the truth is you can. Sound quality is a big part of the cost of that 125, because you have equipment in there that sounds like the refrigerator that we can all hear. People in the room can't hear, people at home sometimes can't hear. And so to do it well, that was that cost. I think we could simplify the system. I just think we do so at anything we do to simplify has those compromised pieces. The video may not be as high quality. Maybe we're okay with that. The audio may not be as high quality, but we can work the bugs out, and maybe we're okay with that.
And so one final thought, do we have like an AV group of students through LRTC that we could have come and record our meetings?
So we actually don't. There's the multimedia program, but they dabble in a number of different multimedia perspectives. We don't have a dedicated AV group of any kind, which I think is what led to us hiring out. Again, that's probably 4 or 5 years ago now, if not more, but we hired someone who came in, set up a camera, did the videotaping. Yeah. Member Parks, I think you had your hand up next, and then Naseem has her hand up.
I have a couple of questions. I know I think it was 4 years ago, Dave, that we went down to that company in Westbrook and then they outfitted the whole room that we've been using at Dingley. And that was supposed to be very current technology. And I know that that wasn't cheap. Is that something that could be moved and set up permanently in a different location somewhere else in the district? Is that not even current anymore because technology changes so quickly? Or what is the status of the stuff that we have there? I can barely
Dave,
hear
I'm
you.
good. Yeah. Thank you.
That unit that's at Dingley only streams straight to YouTube. So there's no Zoom involved in it. It's just the cameras are mounted on the walls. And with an iPad, you were able to change between cameras. And then, like I said, it only went to YouTube. When COVID came, we wanted to allow people to come in because they couldn't come into the space. So we allowed them to come in from home, literally, right? And then do that piece, but that was through Zoom, where they joined the Zoom session. Right now, all we're doing is streaming to YouTube and not allowing people to come into the Zoom to participate that way because we're allowing them to come back into the meeting space and participate in that regard. We have a unit, which is basically a 4K, nice 4K camera that I used, back in Dingley a few times and need be. And it's a 4K camera, and we have a unit that goes on the top of it called the Video U. And that Video U will actually stream straight to YouTube. So if you want to take Zoom completely out of the picture and just take a camera that can go to any school and be able to film from that camera and have it go straight to YouTube, so it's already up there and posted, we have the technology to do that. The only thing we'd have to play with is if we decided to try and bring the microphones on the road, which is a little bit of a hassle to somehow pack it up so it can travel, but I'm sure we could get up past that hurdle. And then it's plugging that conferencing unit into the actual camera that we're bringing to those meetings. So it's a little less involved, but there might be a way of doing it without bringing all these microphones is a little bit of a challenge in setting it up in different spaces, shaped differently and so forth. So you might be able to find a passable solution for audio that doesn't involve all these mics. But it is potentially possible that this system could tie in to the camera.
So the system as it is right now at Dingley is capable of doing essentially the same thing that we're doing here now that we're not doing the
Except
Zoom.
you'd be taking Zoom out of the picture.
And it doesn't require like manual upload. It automatically goes to YouTube.
If set up the way it was originally, yes. The answer was just before we get done, there was an issue with it a little bit. We need to call Pro AV and have them come set it up. But set up initially, it would just on an iPad with buttons on the iPad, you could stream straight to YouTube.
And that's all still current technology or mostly current technology?
I think it still works. I think you're getting, technology has taken a few leaps since we put that in there, but for the most part, that should still work.
Thank you. My other question, I don't know who would answer this one, but what do we have for technology set up in the auditorium at the middle school?
That's really a performance setup. We don't have any cameras to capture things.
It's a very large space.
It is a large space. It certainly could be considered. I don't know about what it would take to do a camera setup there. I've even heard from other districts that use essentially primarily Zoom, and then they put a computer at their podium. So anyone participating can be on Zoom, but that would require everyone in the same space. And then you have to make sure the network can handle that. You got to mute and all that stuff. But so I think there's options that the auditorium could be looked at. I'll be honest, when I heard the quote and the delay on things to install it, I had sticker shock. And I was just thinking, I mean, we're talking about these cuts that are just razor thin away from really, really at the bone. And it was hard to spend that kind of money. We did look at some other spaces. We took a look at city. I spoke with some city staff. That council chamber, the seating array is not big enough for us. And between their other committees that meet, there would just be too much overlap. We also talked about a space at the chamber. They have a conference room there, again, not big enough. I have explored the Green Ladle and maybe setting something up there. That's still a possibility. I just wanted some direction on what we want to do before we mount a camera anywhere or just go completely mobile.
My one last question was,
Sure.
have we looked at Callahan Hall at the library?
I did not look at Callahan
Because I
Hall.
know that's pretty, we've had some like mayor's debates there and stuff, and it's
Yeah.
been a lot of people, so it seems like it might have enough room. I think I was next.
Yep, Miss Eames, and I think I saw Member Scott and then Member Beaupont.
So, thank you. So I just wanted to put in a word for good microphones. I remember listening at home years ago, up until recently, actually, and not being able to hear anything. So when these came in, it was miraculously different home experience. So I just wanted to put that in.
So a couple of things. So first off, when we recognize Dave, I have a picture of him when his first year as a teacher in my yearbook. So just remind me, we will bring that in. Sorry, off topic. Back to the microphones and the videotaping. So I was here when this discussion first came up, and this was really huge for the community to be able to watch our videos. I mean, I would hate to see us lose any of that. That being said, I'm super conservative, and that number shocked me too when I read that over the weekend. I like the idea. I'm glad that Megan asked that question about the unit at the Dingley building. If that could be moved to possibly the library or another big space, I think that that's a good option. And I honestly believe that at this point, I mean, unless we get some mandate or something happens, the pandemic is, I think it's time to stop the Zoom. We don't have that available at the city council. You know, back in the day when a member missed a meeting, they missed a meeting and somebody else took over. If it was the chair, the superintendent could run the meeting. We now have a vice chair that could run the meeting. So I don't think that that's something that we need. And I mean, it's very rare that we have a meeting where there's not a quorum, right? So I think that we could probably just go with that particular setup and just ensure. I know that when we were having the meetings before COVID and you had to do the Zoom and you set all of this up, those videos that we watched on YouTube were very visible. I used to watch them all the time. I think it's really important to have that out there as that reference point to folks that, you know, oh, I heard this happen at this meeting. I like to go back and watch them. I do it all the time. So I think that's important. And I think that maybe if we check that out, that might be the appropriate way to go, where we have the short term with Dave, what he's done with his crew right now to get us through, see if we can possibly move. Callahan is actually a brilliant idea. And they may actually have some stuff already there because we have legislative delegation meetings there. There's all sorts of things that happen. So that might be a possibility, but see if we can move that over and go from there. I mean, honestly, I would love to be able to visit schools. I thought that was a great thing when we used to be able to visit schools, but we didn't get those filmed. We would be in the library, we would be in a cafeteria. It was a great presentation for the school committee. It's unfortunate the community couldn't see it because we usually would get some really great presentations from the staff and the principal and the students, but we have to think about costs and we have to think about keeping this a viable option for everybody. We really need to have the videos available. That's where I'm at. Thank you.
If you use the sound, we have wireless mics still at Dingley, if you remember, that were on the tables, the wireless mics. We'd have to check batteries, make sure after 2 years that we may have to get some new ones. There's two sensors that are on the wall, or at least one, there's the one in the Jordan room, but the one in the Dingley room would have to be moved to whatever new location, because that's how the wireless mics talk to it. Or we use this set of microphones, and if they can give us a place to lock them up over there, even better.
We never had oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, we never had a problem with those wireless mics. They worked really great when we first started using them.
Pro AV would just have to come in and do a refresh for us, so it shouldn't be large amounts of money.
Thank you. Just to clarify, are we required by law to broadcast to the community?
We are not.
I agree with the sticker shock that members have shared here, but I also know that one son in Texas and one son in Massachusetts and my wife at home get on these meetings through whatever YouTube technology. It's valuable. I wouldn't want to lose that.
So do we have no COVID funds available at all to help us with anything?
So we haven't put in this item as part of our application process. Not that we couldn't try to get some funds. I guess before I spent anything, I wanted to figure out where are we going to land and what the approach would be to try to meet it in the middle. The equipment day is talking about at Dingley. I think we could potentially in the short term, because we have typically less attendance in the summer. We could try to use that in the short term where it is with these mics and see how it plays, get Pro AV in if we need to. And if that all works, we can make a decision on where we want it to be located or find a partner like the library to put it there. So it could be that it doesn't cost a lot of money. It could be that if it costs money, we could reapply and see what we can get for those funds. It is a process and has to be approved and all of that.
Well, I think it would be wise to at least try for more funds. So then we won't have to worry about our budget. But I just still don't know like where we would have it or anything.
Right. It wouldn't be more funds. It would be moving something else off, like mechanical work or other things that we have already gotten approved for those amounts.
Okay, well, never
So
mind
it's
then.
it's not impossible, but it's trickier than.
It's
I-
also, sorry,
Oh.
supply and demand as well. So if we find the funds, it's getting the equipment and then getting it installed in time to be able to use it.
Another piece, I know that we had talked about like the not having Zoom set up or anything. It's strange because I think we were like, okay, the mandate is no longer there and we don't need to Zoom. I like it. And I guess the reason why, and I'll say it, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but when I went to a city council meeting a few weeks ago and there was a city councilor that was super, super sick, but felt that person needed to be there in person. I was like, whoa, like we're in a different time now that like, if you're sick, you shouldn't be around people. Right. But doesn't mean you're on your deathbed either. And you still could participate. So I don't know. I don't want people to feel like even if they're sick, they've got to come to a meeting. So I don't know. I kind of like the Zoom idea, but I'll go with what everyone thinks, but I kind of like that.
Dave, do you know roughly, I know that Zoom is pointed in a direction where free is no longer and security is no longer, as we project that way, do you see a substantial cost? Or is it going to be like a subscription for Zoom if we maintained it for these kinds of meetings?
So we already pay for the subscription for these meetings. We pay for a webinar license to go along with the Zoom license. So the Zoom license, I'd have to go back and check. We got 200 licenses for about $4,000 for the district. So that's just your cost for the Zoom license itself. So whatever, do the simple math there, but that's what it costs us per license. And then on top of that, we paid, I think it's roughly about $1,200 for the webinar portion of that for the annually. So we pay about another $1,200. So that gives you those two options, and because you need the webinar. So, and whether they're going to increase that a little bit more, I don't know, but that's what it's been since last year about this time.
Thank you. Member Hurd and then Member Scott.
Thank you. So along with what Tanny was saying, when I was gone on vacation in March, which now I know do not schedule anything in March again. But I did like that I could Zoom in for those meetings because I would have been totally lost in the middle of budget season if I wouldn't have been able to have that option. But it sounds like we're paying a considerable amount to be able to Zoom. So I would say maybe use it until our subscription or whatever expires and then maybe not renew when that comes up. Because I feel like more people, if they want to come, they have to come to a meeting, just like city council, you don't actually have that option. For Zoom, I think it's more of like, it's added, it's icing on the cake to have the option for Zoom. Do we know if there's any space over at the Armory? I mean, I've really only been there for basketball games, but it seems like a very large building.
It is, but the side rooms and the upstairs are not that big. And I'll throw some kudos to the rec department who's doing a lot more programming now. And those spaces are set up and being used, which is a good thing. And then I think the open floor space is too big and sound wise would be challenging. We even thought about other cafeterias, but not maybe moving so many things like the high school cafeteria. I mean, I think we can find a location. My sense, at least is what I'm hearing, and please tell me if I'm wrong, is that we want to continue to live stream somehow. We want to continue to make our videos available on the webpage. We're okay with less technology, but we want to make sure it sounds reasonable and that video quality is probably not critical, but we don't want it to look terrible. So maybe looking at the existing technology, trying the Dingley room again, and maybe over the summer when things are not so full house to see if that system works. And then talking to Pro Review about the download rendering live stream component. I mean, we can start with that for now, if that's okay with everyone. And eventually not using this particular space, but more and more this is being used during the day. So it's becoming more of a challenge for facilities. Remember, Bowden?
Just one final thought when you were talking, I thought of, we have a couple public theaters in Lewiston, Auburn. We have our public theater in Lewiston, and then there's Community Little Theater in Auburn. And I know that they have really nice mic systems like hanging down. Is it something we could set up like on stage and they might have AV equipment there, maybe a small rental fee to, I don't know, just a thought for thinking of spaces.
Yeah, I can definitely look into it. Dave knows how that stuff pipes together much better than I do from that sense. But did I miss someone? I'm sorry, I remember Scott.
It's all right. I checked you off my box. You're all set. I got you. I'm watching you. So I was going to ask you if those fees that you were just talking about, has that paid off for the year? What's the end date on that? Do we know?
I think, just don't hold me to it, but I'm thinking that those subscriptions come up due in September. So I'm thinking
that gives us
you
a
get a
little
little
bit of
time in
time.
the summer probably to play with.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. If we had a little bit of time that we could keep it going for now to see how we can work through this. And I was just going to add that with the Armory space, with the new Maples coming in, they're doing tryouts right now. We have the Boys and Girls Club going into one section. The senior center is full on a regular basis now. And there's some extensive amount of restoration work that needs to be done at the Armory that is part of our LCIP, and work will be beginning soon. I think that right now is not an option, at least for this year. That's it. Thank you.
Remember?
What about oh, sorry, go ahead, Bruce.
Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said there were issues as far as even acquiring more of the microphones we're using at Connors. Is that right?
Right. This system right here, even though we bought it a year and a half ago, it's completely discontinued. You cannot add any extra mics to this system. Hence why I had to add 2 regular XLR microphones and get a whole new device to make it all mesh. So the answer is what's here could be moved, but you'd be moving 2 mics as well. So, yeah.
These mics interact with the wireless ones that we have at Dingley?
Nope, totally different technology because these are hardwired mics and those are wireless. Now I'd have to look into whether or not we can buy any more of the wireless mics that we have at Dingley, because the ones we have at Dingley, we were even getting low on those. So we were sharing, I think a couple of people were sharing mics at the end. So I'd have to look and see if those are available.
Other thoughts I had thought about, I know there's going to be some renovation work done at the Green Ladle, if I'm correct, Jake. They were going to do something about that wall.
They already put 2 brand new TVs up in the conference rooms that are off the main dining room. But I think that was pretty much the bulk of what they were going to do, unless there's more to it. Where's Robin? You need him.
Yeah, there's talks in the LCIP about a divider-like wall, but that hasn't come to fruition just yet.
Gotcha.
Wondering if we could dovetail off of that construction for, to do something there. That seems like a reasonable size space. The other thing I wondered, is there any way we could talk to Lewiston Auburn College to see if they have space in that nice conference room that they have down there, and if that's wired? Because I know they do remote teaching across the state with the technology they have down there.
That's a good ask, yeah.
It's a ways out of town for folks, but there's plenty of parking, there's plenty of space.
Yeah, I'll add that to the theaters and whatnot. Member Hurd and then Member Whitlow.
I think Bruce I was gonna say, isn't that the USM college that's over there in the industrial park? That's what I was gonna say.
So we talk about the licenses. Is it the Zoom licenses that we're specifically talking about?
There's 2. There's you have to buy a Zoom license first, and then you have to add webinar functionality to it.
Okay. And so once those run out or expire, would we be renewing some of those anyways? So it's really, for us to continue, isn't any more really expensive. Live streaming would be more expensive.
Yeah, I believe what I put in the budget for this coming year was I cut the number of Zoom licenses down from 200 to 100 because we had people in the district that still, some of the special ed situations needed Zoom licenses. So I knocked it down. I think we're using 86 of them right now. And so I thought, well, we'll go with 100 in case some more people jump on. So that way we could save a little bit of money.
So we still have the option of just continuing on when it's not going to affect our budget at all. Continuing what we're doing.
Yeah, I think the money, as long as the budget passes, the money's in there for now. So to cover those Zoom licenses, the only thing that is, I think I might have put in there for the webinar, but I think you'd be okay with the local budget to be able to continue.
Another thing about the theaters, I think that would be hard because they're always performing and rehearsals are in the evenings and stuff for those. So I don't think that's really an option. I just didn't want Jake to waste his time because that wouldn't work. I don't think so. I think that's.
I had a question about the policy change that came in, I think it was right around August 1st of last year in regards to the COVID stuff, like ending coverage for remote meeting attendance. I know at the time we had voted on it that if somebody had to miss a meeting, they were going to just miss a meeting through our usual absence policy, and it wasn't going to be accessible via Zoom. So I'm wondering when that changed and why it changed and where we are now and all of that.
Yeah, so a few things happened. Don't quote me, please don't quote me, but I think it's policy BED that we approved in August that aligned to the governor's emergency order. And so part of that was I believe that language is really about locally having outside folks participate live in the meeting. And then, and we didn't put that in our policy, I don't believe. What we put in the policy was if you had to be remote, kind of like Bruce is tonight. So we're meeting the criteria of that policy. Bruce is with us, he's live, his camera's on, his audio is synced. So if he says something, we're hearing it and vice versa. So it was really about continuity of meetings. And so that was that policy that was approved. And then in the procedural rules, we had a conversation around how things shifted because the emergency order had been lifted. People were coming in person more and more. And that was when we transitioned away from, with procedural rules, when that was adopted, it was when we transitioned away from having the interactive live stream, if you will, or Zoom, if you will. And where we are now, by rule, we don't have to Zoom, we don't have to live stream. We don't even have to post the video. I don't think anybody's interested in that, but so really there's no state mandate right now for any of those provisions that we've made. But I mean, I think there's consensus that we want to continue to stream the videos and can continue to make them available. And I just wonder how simply we can do it for mobility purposes and for cost purposes without losing the integrity of quality.
I think setup wise, it's that 4K camera with the video U unit on the top connected to some audio, some microphone system of some kind to make it work.
Dave, do you think that could be on a cart somewhere? Like, is that just?
Well, we have, which is more difficult, but right behind the stage, we had that whole cart set up for video conferencing. It just really is hard to get a whole group like that. And the screen is much, much smaller than this for any of you to see what's being displayed or on the screen for a person. It's great for, a meeting where you get 15 people much closer together, all looking at that, like they used to do in the Jordan room, for an example, at Dingley. But carrying the case with the camera in it, with the video U, it all fits in one case. You bring it with you, you got a tripod. And then the only other challenge is going to be the microphone system, whether it's a full-blown microphone system like this, or do you go to some other smaller system that connects to the camera? That's really where we're at.
Any other thoughts? Member Parks?
I'll just add that I think finding a way to utilize the equipment that we just bought a few years ago that's at Dingley. And if we can't put it permanently in some roomy location somewhere around Lewiston, seeing if there's enough stability to put it on a cart or pedestals or things like that that are easily moved. That sounds like our best and most financially conservative option, trying to utilize what we already have.
Right. Thank you all for your input. That's very helpful.
I don't see that there's really nothing to vote on here, Jake. I think it's just some more research.
Looks like we're up to item number 11.
11 is to receive, to update and potentially vote on the FY 22-23 budget.
So we have done some more work in talking with the city. I did connect with Member Scott, who has relayed some information from City Council. We looked at another small reduction. Well, I shouldn't say small, it's pretty substantial, of $115,000. And that's made up of two things. One of them would be a teaching position, likely at the high school level. And the other would be, we found it's either $45,000 or $49,000. Bill helped locate, and it was from debt service, and it's from something that is actually going to be paid in full, so it doesn't need to carry into our budget next year. So that was just a finding of finding when the term was coming to a close. And just as a reminder to everyone, I don't have the number in front of me right now, but a substantial amount of increase that has happened over the last 2 years has been connected to the expansion at the high school. I remember Damon and I were talking about it. Chair Damon and I were talking about it numerous times recently. Probably something I should have made more emphasis on when we presented to the city council for the general public to hear also. That addition was a $14 million voter approved referendum, and it comes with a mortgage. And so that mortgage is in effect now. So it kicked in last year. And so, to the tune of like $2 million a year, 2.3, I think last year. And so we can't forget that a big chunk of what we have asked for the last couple of years, notwithstanding the reductions we've made, has been connected to an expansion that we're very proud of and very happy to have. But again, there's bills associated. So what I wanted to share with you tonight, with that work, and I've had a conversation again with folks from the city, we were able to whittle things down to $11.36, which is a 90% ask on the mill rate And the latest feedback I've gotten, it just, some of it's just individual conversations, that there's support at the city level for that request. And so before I go submitting things to them, I wanted to share that number with you to see if that's a number people are comfortable moving forward with. And if that's the case, a motion to take a vote on that, I think would be appropriate. And because then we have to work on warrant article documents and some legalese that go into the referendum work. But I'd want a vote to be okay with that number or some other motion before I proceed. And answer any questions that you have also. Member Scott?
Thank you. So last Thursday, the city council did have a budget meeting, and we pretty much finalized and buttoned up where we feel we're at on the budget. That included the school department, that included the conversation of it being 90 cents. That's what I got in my paperwork last Thursday. And so we had city at 29 cents, school at 90 cents, county at 6 cents, ending with a mill rate increase of $1.25. And I mean, there was some discussion about, some had hoped that we could get down to $1. I know that was, but I think that the majority of the council was pretty comfortable with this being the ending number. And a matter of fact, so much so that we're not having an additional meeting this coming Thursday. We have a meeting tomorrow where we're going to finalize some stuff also, but I think we're good to go.
Member Whitlow?
Do we know what position is going to be eliminated at the high school?
So I've got some ideas of things that we have added over the last few years. But I think what we want to do is, once we know what budget is actualized, take a look at, is there any attrition, involve the leadership team at the high school a little more with them knowing it's not discussion of what we're looking to do. So I don't have the specific position. I have a few in mind, but I'd want more conversation to happen with leadership there before that decision is made. Because the other piece of this is, it could get voted down. It could result in some other things, and it shifts all the communication if we have to go take more things. But we're going to look at enrollments and what supports are needed for students. And again, I'm going to keep in mind, those vulnerable kids that need the supports. So.
So we would need a motion in support of your budget, Jake?
1 second. Member Scott has her hand up.
So that's next Tuesday that you're coming to city council. Is that correct?
That's correct. Which also, if I may, Mr. Chair, insert something that's not on the agenda. Not a real big thing, but next Monday, we're scheduled to have a meeting. It's also looking more and more like Eid will be celebrated either on Monday or recognized on Monday. And the chair and I discussed maybe moving Monday's meeting to the 9th. And if something comes up and we need an emergency meeting, we can call one. But that being a paid holiday for Lewiston Public Schools, it would seem appropriate to push that out 1 week. And it would be after the city's vote, so we would have more information. If there's no objections from anyone.
Any further discussion about either of these two items, the budget or that moving that particular meeting date?
Member Hurd.
I'm traveling again. Can I Zoom into that meeting? Is that okay?
We still have licenses, Dave
Okay.
says, so yes, we should be all set.
Thank you.
Member Scott?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to receive and approve.
I'll second.
Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Ward 1 is yes. At large.
Yes.
Ward 2,
If Ms. Scott thinks the city council will approve it, then I'm a yes.
3,
Should I just go? Okay. Ward 3 is yes.
4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
City Council.
Yes.
Vote is 9-0. Motion passes. At least at our level.
Bruce, your audio is in and out for some reason. It hasn't
Sorry.
been, but-
Well, maybe me. Item number 12 is to review and potentially vote on the second reading of the following policies. BCB, School Committee Members' Conflict of Interest. BGR, Policy Adoption Procedure, and JLCB, Immunization of Students. I believe there was a write-up in the packet on all of these.
I just wanted to remind some of the new members that when it says second reading, that means that we've already done a first reading and approved it, so that you know that unless we talked about changes, there's nothing that's going to be changed on these.
Member Scott?
I just wanted to ask a point of clarification. Do we need to vote on these individually, or can we take them all together because it's a second reading?
It's a second reading and they're all in one item. So as long as the motion says clearly that we would be approving all three, I think that would be fine.
Okay.
A motion?
I'll make a motion. Second.
So that motion by Ms. Scott and second by,
By Miss Eames and seconded by Miss Medina.
Can we clarify what the motion is so that everybody knows? Yeah.
motion is to have second reading to approve the three policies, BCB, BGR, and JLCB.
Ms. Eames, is that what you? Perfect.
That is what I understood. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yes, that's what I understood as well.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Ward 1 is yes. At large.
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
and City Council.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. Policies are adopted as presented. Item number 13 is to receive and potentially vote on the calendar 22-23 school calendar. And I believe there were two options, and maybe Jake can sort of identify what the differences were.
Sure. Again, with some direction from the committee in conversation and working with the regional calendar, which we have to get real close to because of the regional mandates. The two differences that you see here really are getting back to that goal of being mindful of how late we get out in June. And there's a few things in here that I think are worth noting. And we did work with the LEA on these proposals and got some good feedback, I think, from all of our staff through surveys. There's a shift in, I'm looking at, draft number 2. There's a shift in the September holidays, going back to the fuller weeks. There's also a shift on the 23rd of November being an early release day, which equates to a day of school versus not, which has been in the past. We looked at that one closely because of the recognition of that November break and got good feedback. Also in December, the teacher exchange day being in December instead of November. So in essence, we have an instructional day where we otherwise would not have had. So it shrinks that end of year piece. So with all of those things included and Karen, you may want to add, in case I'm missing some things, in draft two, those are the shifts that contribute to the end of the school year being the 14th, the 13th, with a couple of snow days built in.
I'll just add the 23rd of November and the 22nd of December are
22nd.
listed as early release days on these calendars. That would be early release for students as well as teachers and other employees. So per the CP contract, any day that students, before a vacation that students leave, when students leave, staff can leave at the same time. So it would count as a student day. It would also give staff a 2-hour early release as well prior to that holiday. So that's different than other early release days.
Jake, could you explain, and I never understand this, what a teacher exchange day is and explain that more clearly on the 23rd of December.
Absolutely. So teachers work in the evenings for parent-teacher conferences, and it's outside of the day that they've already worked. And so those usually 2 sessions equal a day. And so in the calendar, that day that could otherwise be a school day is a non-school day. And so where it goes, we discovered in different districts, it varies a great deal. As you know, this year we used the March date as a school day to shrink the year because of the snow days and the other interruptions we had. But the teacher exchange day is, they've worked those hours already. And then within the calendar, there's a day of work by contract that they don't work because they already worked it, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like, it's a contractual way of doing overtime during parent-teacher conferences by giving back a day later, because there's not additional compensation for that time.
So it's an actual day off, teachers, students. Is it, so calling it teacher exchange day by like state guidelines or federal guidelines, that's a day off that would be considered a school day.
So if they had not had parent-teacher conferences, those would be teacher workshop days. That's the easiest way to put it. So it'd be a teacher workshop day, but because they've worked those hours in the evenings, instead of having them come in for the workshop day, that day is a day of compensation in terms of that time.
So is it possible, and I don't know if it matters, I think it does, but when you say teacher exchange day, for many parents, we just don't know what that means. Can you put a slash on the end of that saying day off or school closed or something, so that, like, especially parents who are in the younger grades that haven't been through this for several years, they don't know what that means. They're getting their kids ready for that. They don't know what that means. So maybe
So if we were to put, like we do on the early release days, when the school, like say on the 14th of December, it says early release, no school for Farwell and Connors. If we put teacher exchange, no school for students and staff, students and teachers, something like that, with that, or no school, something like that. Yep, sure. No, it would be all, but.
Member Bowden?
Thank you. Are we voting on which of these calendars we'd like to approve?
Yeah, so in essence, the version 1 has more holidays, and version 2 has less holidays and gets out a little sooner. The workshop day and the exchange days, those are the same in both, Karen.
Correct.
So I guess I would like to support the second option that gets the kids out of school a little bit sooner in teachers. And isn't, we kind of already had this discussion about religious holidays. I just feel like it needs to be all or nothing. I don't see all on that calendar, so I'm going to vote for nothing as far as religious holidays. So I would vote for option 2, where the last student day would be the 8th without a snow day.
Member Scott?
The discussion?
Yes, thank you. So looking at the calendar with the holidays, the only difference that I'm seeing is the Jewish holidays. Is that correct?
That is correct. And those
Okay.
are the 2 September holidays that have had a lot of input back and forth. I'm sorry, they're not always September. They do move.
They do move, right? So, and Yom Kippur, because that's at the beginning of October, sometimes that can be moved in that particular area. So my question is, did not the school board vote to add those to the calendar? Would we not have to vote to remove those instead of just voting to approve one calendar? I'm wondering about correction here.
So it's happened both ways on multiple items. So different holidays have been approved as standalone items. Different holidays have been approved as part of the calendar, such as this. And in addition, I would say there have been other things that have been mandated, like Juneteenth, that became a holiday and it wasn't part of either processes. Just full disclosure, this does have those 2 days connected to the Jewish faith in the fall that are not in the second draft. And that's why we wanted both in front of you. I think procedurally, you can do either, because I think it's in the open. Nobody's hiding anything that's on the draft and not on the other draft. And it's been a discussion. So and it has gone back and forth.
If I might continue, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, prior to these days being added to the calendar from the previous school committee, when a student was of the Jewish religion and they wanted that off, they could ask for that off without getting any repercussions, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But we still have Eid on here on both calendars, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm still thinking. Thank you.
And just because you're asking, the rationale for that is the number of students that practice each of those faiths. And I think Member Bowden said it well, and we've talked about different holidays offline. So I apologize if I'm oversharing a conversation, but it was how many kids are impacted by this. And so when we did it the first year, we got the data from, and I don't recall it, but we did go look at just how many students in the past have been impacted by this that do it. And so it's such a hard conversation because it's someone's faith, and it's one of the major faiths of the world. But it's hard when I think directly to our immediate community. It's how many people are being impacted. So. Member Bopala?
I'd like to tell the current members of the committee that when this first came up, there was some debate on it, and I did contact Rabbi Skrull from the temple, and he agreed, in your words, as you said very eloquently, the different numbers, and he would have had no problem with a Jewish student, a Jewish faculty member taking the day off to, have their respect and their prayer and so on, with no, sick days or anything like that. So I'm very comfortable with option 2 for that reason.
I have no idea. I think was this side. So can I go Member Parks, then Member Eames, and then Member Whitlow?
I know Miss Scott asked about, for the students, there's no repercussions for students to miss a day. If a staff member is of the Jewish faith and takes either any of those holidays off, does it count against their paid time off? Does it count against any of their accrual, or do they just get the day off paid and that's it?
So those are all negotiated in different contracts. So there's slightly different provisions for each collective bargaining agreement, but it is without penalty. So there's no mark on your employment record. It's not a negative by any way. It's not just a straight paid holiday. That would be a decision here or specific to a negotiation in a collective bargaining agreement.
So a staff member would
They could,
presumably have to use their own time off.
correct. Yeah, and that's negotiated. But that's very permissible and does happen.
Just so I don't have to speak again in a minute. I would be more in favor of the first calendar. I know it puts our students in school for 2 days longer. But I think that there was a lot of discussion in the community and among the previous committee around adding both the Jewish and the Muslim holidays. And I think it was very well received. by the community. They may not have thought it was necessary, but I know that there were a lot of people that really appreciated it. And I think it would just feel gross to kind of backtrack on that. And so I would be more in favor of the first one. And just to point out procedurally, we have a motion, but we don't have a second on it yet, and we're discussing it. And I'm done. Thank you.
No, there was no motion yet. That's why I was confused. I was kind of looking around. So we'll kick ahead. Member Eames, and then. So there's no motion on the table right now. I thought this was just discussion.
I thought that Janet had made a motion, but I misunderstood.
Okay, so I first of all want to make it very clear that the holidays move around according to a lunar calendar. And so calling them the September holidays is wrong. And I know it interfered last year with the beginning of the year, and that may be stuck in people's heads because last year was unusual, but it's not always early September that these holidays fall, number one. Number two, I think it's all or nothing is the way you put it. But then if we are recognizing Eid, then the only way to do that is to vote on calendar 1, not 2. Because if we're going to recognize Eid, as we should also recognize the other Abrahamic calendar holiday. Religious holiday. So I would vote for calendar 1, which is the one that includes the Jewish holidays and other holidays, Christian and Muslim holidays.
I think it was Member Whitlow next.
So I have a completely different memory than the rest of you, I guess, because I thought that last year there was like a revoke of the vote, and there was no longer going to be the Jewish holidays on our calendars. Megan is doing this over here. What?
Somebody attempted to revoke their vote, but it didn't revoke Jake.
Those holidays are still in play. That process around revisiting and then ultimately revoking did not land with a vote that was substantial enough to make a change. And so what happened was, at least my quick rundown from my recollection is, there was on the agenda to put in Eid, and in the midst of conversation at the same time, Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah were added to the motion, not as a pre-discussed item. So this is going way back. And then maybe it was around budget. It wasn't an item on the agenda. It was brought in as a compromise in discussion and then inserted into a motion and approved. And then we had that in our calendar, and we tried to get data to bring it back to you. I think it was last fall, after we had the days and we talked about what it meant. We got feedback from teachers, we got feedback from families, and brought that back. And then it was still voted in favor to keep it. So it wasn't taken out at any point in time, to my knowledge.
I think Bruce had pushed it to us, saying next, or somebody had pushed it to this committee to do.
So it's still in play currently, if that. I think the next hand I saw was Member Beaupelin.
Thank you. I just worry that it's very important, but we create somewhat of a slippery slope. We have a Baha'i faith community here. There's a Hindu members, probably even Buddhists, although it's very individual and contemplative. Where do we draw the line? I repeat that my conversation with the rabbi, that he felt it was very appropriate for Eid to be celebrated to Muslim holidays. And again, with the small number of affected members of the Jewish community, to let them have the day off without any, as you said, black mark against their record would be acceptable. Thank you.
Member Bowden?
Thank you. I just wanted to point out to member Eames' comment on calendar one. It doesn't have any Christian holidays. We have a winter break, but students aren't really allowed to celebrate Christmas at school because it's a Christian holiday. There is Good Friday that just passed and Ash Wednesday. Those are both Christian holidays that are not on the calendar. So when I say all or nothing, also to Mr. Member Beauplant's point, there are a lot of different religions. And I would argue that there is a larger Christian part of our community than there is a Jewish part. Not that I'm saying like one is more important than the other, but I just feel like, you know, if we're going to vote on this, it needs to be all the holidays for religion or none of the holidays for religion. And, you know, we do have Eid in there. That's a gigantic piece of our population. And I understand why we do it. And I'm not arguing that. I would just like to see option 2. So I guess I will make a motion now that we pass the second option.
I will second that motion.
Second.
So
There's
Chair,
there's a motion to,
with a second. Sorry, go ahead.
correct me if I'm wrong here, there's a motion on the floor that's been seconded to support the second calendar that was presented, which does not include the Jewish holidays.
That's correct. Option 2 does not include the Jewish holidays.
That was presented by Ms. Bowden and second by Ms. Hurd.
Yes.
Further discussion, Ms. Whitlow?
Yeah, so I feel like I've already mourned this death. You know what I mean? Like I could probably pull up my Facebook post after the meeting where we voted, not unanimously, but we voted to not have the Jewish holidays on the calendar. I'm gonna pull up that because I was so upset because I was the one who made the motion to approve to put the Jewish holidays on the calendar, or either I seconded it or something. I was part of it. Okay. But now I feel like I've already mourned it. And like, I feel very conflicted with this one. And I respect Mr. Beauplant's conversation that you had with the rabbi, right? And where he was with this. And you're probably the only one that took time out to speak with a rabbi and to really hear this out. And, you know, he even thought that it was okay not to have it on the calendar. And as long as they were respected and were able to have time off and the students were, you know, knocked for it. So for missing school. So I'm so conflicted with this, but I can't be like creating this in my mind that we've already declined, like revoked it. So crazy. So I'm still not sure how I'm going to vote on this one.
Member Beauplant?
Thank you. And if I had any technological skills, I could bring up the email where he quoted that directly if anyone has any doubts at all. I also reached out to the Greek Orthodox community, but there'd been a change in local patriarchs and I couldn't get a response there. But I would assume that is a significant number as well. So again, where do we begin? Where do we end? And I still go by the rabbi's point of view. Thank you.
Member Hurd?
Am I correct to assume that this calendar, let's just say draft number 2, already has 5 different days than the other districts that we're in with?
So the 5 dissimilar days is a total of 5 dissimilar days for the region. And so if, say, Lisbon has 1, that's 1. If we have 1, that makes 2. Auburn is 3. So we are already at the 5 But the dissimilar days are really anchored in the LRTC. So whenever they don't have all their kids or they're not available to take their kids, it's a dissimilar day.
So my backup question or second question off that is the January 1st observance, like we're already off like 10 days. Why are we gonna, the second, we're observing the first, like you have parents who have to get back to work. They were just on Christmas break. Like maybe they don't have childcare, maybe they don't have daycare, maybe they don't have coverage for their kids. Why? Why can't we like push that to the end or push it to something else? You know, I
Right.
feel like we're doing a disservice to our parents.
It's a really good question that I asked because I was like, why are we doing this? That's such a long break. January 2nd is the federal observance of New Year's because it lands on a Sunday. And that happens at a number of other holidays too, which it's a really good question. I looked at like 3 places and every time I saw it, I wanted to disprove it somewhere else, but that's where it landed as I understood it.
So next year, when the calendar falls and it falls on the actual day, like it'll just be observed of that day for like the rest of that week.
Right.
For like 5 years after.
Right. So as you know, the calendar rotates, but yeah,
Right.
if it lands during a weekday, it's that day.
Okay.
The other thing that I learned when I did some work this year with calendar, like I've never done before, if it lands on Saturday, it's observed on Friday. So you could have a split. And so from year to year, it could be Friday or Monday or already scheduled Monday through Friday, depending on the calendar.
One more brain thought. Is there a way, so that's a federal thing? That's not like a district thing?
Right. It's federal and state have different guidelines on how holidays are recognized. New Year's happens to be a federal. There are others that are state specific, like Patriots Day. Patriots Day is always that Monday in April. It is not a national holiday. It's a state recognized holiday, several states, in fact, but it's not, you know, if you went to California, they don't have Patriots Day off. They don't recognize that.
But as a district, like our 5 schools or whatever, 6 or whatever, we couldn't all decide as a district to say, hey, guess what? We're actually not going to observe that and push that to the end of our calendar.
So the federal holidays, no. And the state holidays, no. That's labor law connected. But for other days or other times, I'm willing to think way outside the box on this. And we've asked our local superintendents, Karen's gonna laugh at me. I asked, you know, have you ever thought about like February break or shortening or April break or just doing 2 weeks like other states do? And they all looked at me like I had 9 eyes and had no idea what I was talking about. But I really am curious about how we could do our calendar different given the times. You know, the idea of getting out of school so late in the year and having these snow disruptions is I just think it's a little crazy that we're not willing to look at it. I don't know that we need 10 days around the what's not called Christmas break, but it's what it is, right? It's associated with that time frame. So I'm willing to look outside the box. Karen and I even looked at ways to do because of that full week around the December 25th holiday. Can we come back to school for a few days and then go back out for New Year's and have like a long weekend? And, you know, and it got you 3 days, but then you have the whole, everybody has these holiday plans to travel with family. And so if we're going to do something like that, I think we need to be 2 years in advance of it because of how far out people book. And I don't think I'll ever get my way, but I'm willing to try. Member Parks.
Just on the subject of like the federal requirements for celebrating holidays, and then the argument that we don't have Christian or Catholic holidays on our calendar. If what we now call December break and what we call spring break were not on those weeks, we would be required to observe Easter on the 17th, which is a Monday, correct? And we would be required to observe Christmas on the 25th, which is also a Monday.
So Christmas, I believe, is a federal holiday. Easter, I don't believe is, but don't quote me. I don't think Easter is a federal holiday.
No.
But to your point, we would have the Monday off for Patriots Day
That's
because that
true,
is
too.
a state identified holiday.
So if our vacations just lined up differently, we would be, as a school district, acknowledging holidays because we're required to.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
you're absolutely right. And actually, each of both February well, all of our big vacations, November, December, February, and April, all have a connection to a holiday, either at the start or within it.
Thank you. I just wanted to explain to Tanya what happened with the vote last time, just to refresh your memory. We did vote. And then at our next meeting, the member from Ward 6 rescinded his vote. And we did not vote again because we decided as a committee to push it until the new committee came in, because we were right on the cusp of the elections. So yes, we voted, but then it was rescinded and then not touched again until now. So you're half right. But no, this wasn't voted on yet.
Anyone else? Seeing none?
So just to be clear, the motion as presented by Ms. Bowden is to adopt the second calendar without the Jewish holidays.
That's correct. Motion by Member Bowden, seconded by Member Hurd.
Any further discussion? I'll call the roll. Whoop.
I was going to say seeing none.
I'll call the roll. Ward 1 is yes. At large.
No.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
No.
Ward 4.
I honestly don't know. I'm not sure. I've never felt like this before in a vote. I don't have a decision yet. So how do I don't want to abstain because I don't think that's appropriate. So I don't know what the process would be.
So there's a couple of options if it's okay with the committee. One would be to abstain, but you'd have to provide reason.
Yeah.
The other would be that we can come back to you in 20 seconds.
It's like when I'm at the dinner restaurant and I don't know what to order. Okay. Yeah, if you can go on.
Is it okay with the committee if we come back to Tanya?
Yes.
5.
So I'm conflicted as well. But I can appreciate all the different perspectives. And I think it's great that we're all able to have this conversation without getting angry at each other. Paul, I don't know how to say your last name. I can't pronounce it. So I'm just blunt. Okay. I really appreciate that you took the time to reach out to the Jewish community to see how they felt. And I do understand that, if we do it for one, we got to do it for everybody. And I think that if that conversation wasn't had, it'd be a lot harder for me. And I do respect all holidays, but with that conversation being had, and I think I'm comfortable with voting yes for that. So just wanted to explain that.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
City Council.
Yes.
Ms. Whitlow.
Does it matter what I?
It always matters what you think.
Oh, I know. Oh, you're the best, Bruce. I'm gonna say stop it. No.
4 is no. The vote would be 6-3. The motion passes.
Any chance we could take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Is everybody take a 5-minute recess?
I could suggest that we wait till executive session. We've only got a couple of reports to go through and then we're in executive session, correct?
Yes. It's up to the committee. You want to take the recess now or you want to give it about 5 minutes?
You guys can continue. If I have to use the restroom, I can just scoot out. That's not a problem.
I will be very brief. The next item on the agenda is from the school committee chair. I really don't have much to add at this point. We've been working with Jake on the budget and on these other couple of items. And other than that, that's all I have. And I think that the superintendent is up next.
I don't have a lot to report. I think I've done enough talking for one evening. I do want to mention as part of this to carve it out that what we have discussed here is not having a meeting next Monday night because of the pending holiday and having it on May 9th instead. And should we need a meeting in between, we'll certainly communicate and call something, or if members feel they need to have a meeting, feel free to reach out to Bruce or I, and we will follow the procedure to do so.
Jake, report from city council rep.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. We did have 2 meetings last week. I've already discussed with you what we had for our budget meeting. And on Tuesday, prior to that, we had a regular city council meeting where we renewed a few licenses, talked about getting some concerts going in Kennedy Park around the Art Walk. We reviewed some policy decisions around fire prevention and protection ordinances, as well as expanding what had happened through COVID on our sidewalks, allowing businesses to have sidewalk eating, and also this year allowing merchants to sell on the sidewalk as well, as long as they remain ADA compliant. We also had the discussion on the moratorium. I'm sure you are all fully aware of how that went, so I'm not going to go into detail on that. We reappointed Mr. Damon as well as Monique Roy to the Railroad Company Board of Directors. And let's see, I think that was about it. And we're meeting tomorrow night for a special meeting, which is just an executive session. And then we'll be meeting again next Tuesday with the superintendent for the vote. Thank you.
I have a quick question for you, Linda.
Yes.
What does it mean by to be ADA compliant, being a vendor on the sidewalk?
So that means that if they're going to sell merchandise on the sidewalk, they need to ensure that there is ability for anybody in a wheelchair, a walker, or anybody with a disability has the ability to walk, move through freely, as well as for public safety with the fire department or the police department. Yep.
Are we supposed to show up on Tuesday in support?
I would love support on Tuesday.
I will reiterate again, and I'm sorry, I probably should have said that. I think that would be great. You know, I was tickled that you all showed up last time. It doesn't happen often at all. So I think it's great. And if you're capable of coming, I think it would be great.
This Tuesday or next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday.
Next
Tomorrow
Tuesday.
we have just an executive
Okay,
session.
thank you.
Is that 6 o'clock, Linda?
6 o'clock on May 3rd.
Thank you. There is no student rep here tonight. Update from school committee subcommittees. I have nothing to report from facilities. We have a meeting on Wednesday coming up. Ms. Whitlow?
I don't have anything. I mean, we just came back from vacation, so I'm not sure if there's moving parts that'll happen this week. I know that we'll probably start doing some other negotiation contracts soon. I guess we'll tell you next meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Bowden, anything?
No problem.
Thank you. Very quickly, the curriculum committee, we had another excellent presentation by Sue Williams and her support staff of specialists on K through 12 revision of the curriculum. I've also had members talk and say that they'd like to be a part of it, but cannot dedicate the whole day. So I need to meet with Miss Assistant Superintendent Paquette, as we did last year when we had the afternoon meetings on what was going on in science and math. And that's originally what I thought we were going to do, but I certainly enjoyed my time that I have it on the curriculum committee meetings are very productive and great job. Sue, please pass that on to your staff. Elizabeth, you want to say anything about that? I didn't mean to monopolize.
Well, you're the chair, but I haven't definitely enjoyed those curriculum meetings very much, and they continue, I think.
Was there anything from finance, or we're all set because of the budget?
I think we're all set. Go ahead, Member Bowden.
No, I was just gonna say, we didn't meet over vacation, and we canceled our last finance meeting because it was the day before you were presenting to the city council. So we have not met again since the city council presentation.
Next item is community announcements.
Oh, sorry, Bruce, we didn't catch that.
The next item is community announcements. Seeing none, I guess that's good, other than, whoop.
Member Scott?
I just want to remind everybody that as we start getting invitations to all of the wonderful graduations, the dinners for our top 10, let's show up last year and let's all show up this year for our students and show them how important this is to all of us, including the city council. I will be reminding them as well. Thank you.
Ms. Parks?
Thank you.
It's okay.
I'll try to be quick because I know Tanya needs to use the bathroom. I was very privileged to be invited by the 7th grade team at Lewiston Middle School for the start of their spring expedition series to speak. They're doing different things about making a positive impact in the community. And they reached out to me to invite me to speak to the students about how being on the school committee can have a positive impact on the community in the various ways. So last Tuesday, I spent the morning there with the students. I followed Tony Atlas, who talked to the students about how he used to babysit Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and things like that. So they really weren't super interested in talking to me about the school committee. But I did get some feedback, things that they said that they would like me to communicate to the superintendent on their behalf. Was that they would like better lunch. They don't think that there's enough options. They want more food and they want more variety of food. I did explain to them that these things aren't things that we can really control, but I did tell them I would relay this. They would like to have discussions about their how grades because they don't think that those are reflective of their actual behaviors. They would like increased phone privileges throughout the school day. The 7th graders said that it's not fair that they don't get recess anymore and they would like to have recess added back to the middle school. And they are upset that there's been no field trips for 2 years, even though it was a pandemic. They would like field trips now to make up for the ones that they missed. We did have a lot of good conversation about how they can be involved in having a voice with the school committee. I told them that they can email any of us or all of us at all times. They can come with their parents to speak at public comment. There's the Civil Rights Club at the middle school. They can talk to their advisors and their crew about specific special interests if they have things that they want the school committee to consider. And then at the high school level, there's the Youth Advisory Council and the student reps. And so probably half of the students seemed really genuinely interested in getting more involved in what we do at the district level. So that was really nice. And then the other community announcement is just the reminder that you said earlier, there will be no school next Monday for Eid. So it's not just that we're not meeting that night, that day there will be no school for the whole district as well.
So just to build off Member Eames' point earlier, that's a lunar identified holiday. So it is projected to be Monday, but it could be Sunday, could be Tuesday. And so I'm just trying to navigate the stars, if you will.
Thank you. So I don't have my phone on or in front of me for a date. I feel like Member Parks might know this date, but there is still a benefit dinner. Is it May 5th? May 5th, there's a benefit dinner at the Green Ladle for Emerson Rouse, who unfortunately passed away last week. But we're still doing the benefit dinner for the family. And there's a lot of silent auction items. And if anyone in the community wants to donate to that or donate to the family, I guess reach out. You can reach out to me through my school committee email and I can put you in touch.
Anything else? The next item was future agenda items. I know we have some, but in deference to Ms. Whitlow, maybe we can just jump over that one.
Well, I actually wanted to go back to school committee community announcements, if you don't mind, it's just quickly. I just wanted to report out that all of the students at the high school that applied for the LRTC programs, and it was like a Christmas morning. You open up your email to see, like, did you get selected to become, part of the LRTC? And it's a different vibe than I've seen before. It's like people want to be in LRTC, and it was really exciting. It was all over social media. I mean, there's a turn where people want to be able to make money when they get out of high school and not acquire a lot of debt from college if they don't know what they kind of want to do, or it's just really exciting. So I was really happy this weekend when I saw that. Do you have a community announcement? Okay, I have a future agenda item after this.
Sorry, with Tanya speaking of that, it reminded me of another community announcement, that the community college system in Maine is now offering free college courses for students who graduated in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, I believe. And that is amazing. So along the same lines of students who want to do something after high school, but they don't want to accrue that debt, that is a really amazing offer. And it goes back for the last 2 years too. So students who've already graduated, it's a great opportunity for them as well. And then I'm done, sorry.
So I do have a future, I'm sorry, I have a future agenda item. Is that okay if I speak on that now, Bruce?
Yes.
Okay. I have to pee brain. Future agenda item. I can't remember now. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, hurry up, I have to go to the bathroom.
At this point, I'll move to a recess and we can bring it back up when we come back. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Anyone ask how you're feeling?
No.
And I was warm too. Future agenda items, did anybody have any they wanted to?
I do. I remembered, a couple of years ago, probably before 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we entered into a regional service center. And then I think COVID hit maybe, and just kind of curious of where we're at with that. And I don't want to like get into it too much, but just for the people that don't know what I'm talking about, Lewiston Public Schools, along with like maybe Auburn and Turner, I'm not really sure. Went into a Poland. Love it. We entered into a regional service center where we benefited from maybe lower prices of milk. I don't know, but it was like some initiative, and we got some funding from the state. But I don't know if we're still in that and all that. So if we could at some point have a little up to date.
Yes, yes, and yes. And we can get you an update.
Okay,
It's
great.
still a thing. There's still funding, and we still, actually, we're newly participating because of COVID. It was really shut down. The funding remained, but the procedures had been limited. And it's been started back up. And the former, I don't even know the name of the position, but there's a person that is the lead in that conversation. That person was from Lewis Public Schools, is no longer here. And so that work continues. As of right now, it's been started back up by me with Bill's assistance.
So do we need a future agenda item on that?
I think it'd be good to have an update just to get the latest greatest. Yeah.
Great.
Seeing none.
Do we need a motion to go into executive session?
We do.
So moved.
Second.
A motion to go into executive session by Ms. Parks and seconded by
Bowden.
Ms. Bowden. Okay,
I believe we have to state state what motion,
Yeah.
I apologize.
yeah, It's,
In accordance
MR
with MRSA 405, I don't have it in front of me. Sorry, go ahead, Bruce.
6A, from the first one, 6A the second one, and 6D is the third one. So it'll be 3 executive sessions in a row. We won't be coming out till after we're done. So there's a motion. Is there any discussion?
Seeing none?
Being none, I'll call the roll. Ward 1 is yes. Ward at large.
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
City Council.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. We will now go into executive session.